Time since I've read this poem. Derek Walcott. Short life, 1948 to 1984. Could that be right? Maybe these are collected poems from, yes, collected poems from that era. Anyway, here it is. Give wine, give bread. Give back your heart to itself. Give it to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Sit. Feast on your own life. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. That's got some beautiful resonances, doesn't it? So let us sit here, right here now. Wherever we find ourselves, it's good enough for waking up. And let us say fully yes to this moment. Yes, I will experience you. Yes, I will be alive. Notice that each breath has its coming into being. It lives its lifetime, its dance in the sun, and then it vanishes. we bring with us to practice the great question: who am I? What am I?
Robert, we can't hear you.
Huh.
I can hear him, Jim.
I can hear him.
Me too.
I think it's you, Jim.
Are you recording, Robert?
Now, yes.
Recording in progress.
Hmm. Sitting. Quote, interruptions, close quotes. Interrupting what? How can the present moment be interrupted? Coming home fully, incarnating fully into this body. Notice the aliveness in the hands. Notice the aliveness in the feet. There's aliveness in the legs. In the arms and shoulders, back. Allowing curiosity to include what's happening in the mind. Are the hindrances blossoming? Is there thinking? Is the mind sort of thick and dull? Or doubting itself? Is the mind anxious? Depressed? we might pull forward the threads of love and compassion. In this time of meditation and for the rest of my life, I aspire to love and accept the experience of this self, exactly as it is in each moment. I aspire to say yes, fully yes to incarnation as this. And by definition, taking birth into a vulnerable, soft, unarmored body. There will be pain and suffering. Whenever this pain or suffering comes forward in life experience, I aspire to hold myself in sweet, gentle compassion. we very directly strengthen mindfulness, the capacity of knowing, of being aware and awake. We strengthen concentration by coming home again and again, home to the breath, home to the sensations of in and out breathing. We strengthen tranquility by lifting the needle time and again on the neurotic mind. We don't have to struggle with it. We simply notice, oh, wandering mind, thank you for sharing. Lift back at the beginning of this breath. We strengthen tranquility and equanimity. The equanimity by being willing to be present for whatever arises. So we might be surprised by a mind of great ease and comfort. How wonderful. Or we might be influenced by or besieged by a mind which is restless and agitated. Both are worthy of attention. embrace the actual experience of life. A body that sits and breathes. Thoughts and analysis, memories, plans also come and go. Using in-breathing and out-breathing as an anchor, a sea anchor, in the midst of all the remarkable changes in a lifetime. Become a home to here and now, to breath, to this breath. And we can use our analytic observational training to notice how much have the hindrances been dominant today. Has there been a lot of wanting or not wanting? Is there a significant amount of restlessness and agitation, worry? Is the mind sleepy and dull? Is there doubting? Remembering, I aspire, I intend, for my meditation period and actually my whole life, to come to more and more fully love and accept this life, this self, this experience of self. And when I discover that there is discomfort or suffering, rather than turning away, rather than rejecting, rather even than projecting, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. Please let us call to the altar of our hearts our teachers and mentors. It's a moment of gratitude and love. Those who have held us aloft and said, go this way. Find that place in the heart which is loving and open. Not some hyper-cosmic experience, just, yes, this is what love is, this is what compassion is. And bring to heart, bring to mind someone else in your life, in your past, perhaps, that you'd really like to love more. You'd like to put down the tension. Not some complicated forgiveness practice. Just, oh yes, here we are, two human beings. Wish this person well. May you be free from whatever afflictions there are. And let us find that place in the heart that is perhaps the golden Buddha that's shaped just like you. And imagine that pouring from this portal, from the source of all love, comes love for you, coming into your chest and heart and up into your shoulders and face and head, and down into the solar plexus and abdomen, the pelvis, the legs. Any places where you are experiencing dis-ease or distress. Letting the healing, loving power of the Buddha, of Kuan Yin, of any chosen ideal flood into you. And let the skin, let the surface of this golden Buddha expand so that it fits exactly in your body. Precise to every pore, every hair. And so we let ourselves be who we really are. And let us offer blessings and love to the north. Whatever is north of you, to the south, to the east and the west, above and below. In short, to all beings. May all beings merit from our practice. Beings of all kinds. Beings who are being born this morning and disappearing this morning in death. Well, here we are alive. The world has come to life around us. I am 2 days from departure. 3:00 on Friday, I'm headed for Frankfurt to be with my Dharma brother Frank and teach a retreat together and have a little time. Jim and the stalwart troop will be helping keep the fires burning in my absence. I think you're teaching a Qigong thing this Saturday too, are you not, Jim?
Yes, sir. I'm going to be online from Duke Street, so I'll be doing the hybrid thing on at 9:00 on the 16th. That is the date. So we'll be expanding our awareness of the energy field and listening to some poetry and sitting quietly and resetting the whole nervous system. So nervous system's been under duress for quite some time now.
You mean since birth?
In my perspective, it got a little more intense in the last few years. So at any rate, we're all going to be moving together and building some harmony and some collaboration in our lives, building a little mindful movement community. See you on Saturday, 9:00.
Thank you, Jim. Nice pitch. Candle is on the second Sunday of each month. That's not true, the first and third Sundays. And on Sunday nights, there's the BQN group. Birch, are you still here? Yeah, you want to say something about the Sunday nights?
I think Leanne or Paula have been absent and on some other journeys, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Leanne, you want to say something?
Gosh, I'm not much of a salesperson. If you are queer identified, you're welcome. It's a lovely little community and very supportive and sweet.
And it's at 7 on Sundays, yes?
Is it 6:30?
It's 6:30. Okay, good.
6:30, yes.
Thank you. Okay, well, any responses to the meditation yesterday that took up the entire time?
Yes. Good morning, Robert. It's Sherry.
Hello, Sherry.
Hi. Yes, was the Mercedes Sosa song Gracias a la Vida?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
did
I
you hear
discovered
it?
her.
I thought you wouldn't have heard it.
Pardon?
You could hear it.
No, but as soon as you said Mercedes Sosa, I knew that was the song you would pick.
Right.
I discovered her when my husband and I were driving on our great adventure in southern Chile, and we went into a store, and I wanted music of Chile to listen to as we drove down the Carretera Austral, looking for rivers and lakes to fly fish. And I discovered Mercedes and another group, a local group that was like a folk song group of Chile called Yapu. And I had those CDs, and I would listen to them a lot because it would take me right back there to that time, which music transports you, doesn't it?
Can, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you lose them in the fire?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. Did you hear sadness in her voice, saying thanks to life?
I heard, I think, everything in her voice.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah. Maybe we'll close this morning with a hearing meditation for those who want to listen to. Gracias.
How do you spell Yapu? Excuse me. How do you spell Yapu? The Chilean group.
ILLAPU or O. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll find it. Thank you very much.
Starts with an I. Isn't that funny?
Yapu.
You know, it's been a long time. It also might start with double L. Yep.
Oh, that could be.
Because that's pronounced with like a Y.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Robert, I have a question. This is Leanne.
Hello, Leanne.
Hello. There was a question last week that I've been thinking about a lot since, or an exchange that happened. And was Francine here? I think it was Francine. But somebody else also about something like if we have an experience in life of another person maybe saying we've changed or we're not responding emotionally in the way we used to, or
Right.
and I'm just wondering, like, what, if anything, does Buddhism have to offer in terms of reflecting on whether we might indeed be fooling ourselves, you know, like whether we are doing some kind of spiritual bypassing and the person is actually right. It just comes up so much, I think, that people say that people who become Buddhist or become more spiritual get sort of too objective or too removed or something from the toils of life or whatever. And if you find yourself like that, which I feel like happens to me in contrast to people that I know, members of my family or whatever, who might be thinking that I'm not getting upset enough about this upsetting circumstance. And then I think, well, are they right? You know, like, am I doing some kind of rationalization and I'm calling it like spiritual? I don't know. I just don't know how we actually check ourselves to get a sense of whether there's authenticity or whether we are kind of using spiritual bypassing or rationalization or whatever.
Really interesting question. One spontaneous response is, well, that's part of the role of Sangha. That we actually have real deep relationships with other practitioners, with other people, really, and we'll get feedback. And then, I just had a memory of, I got together with someone to make amends about something that I realized, how do I say this briefly? It was in my second marriage, and I found her saying exactly the same things to me that my wife had said about me. And they weren't the first either. And it's like I finally got it to some degree, and I had a meeting with the first person to make amends, and I explained what I had been doing, and her response was, yes, you do that. But it was true. And so the world had been giving me very specific feedback about I would say a wound And it was helpful to have the world tell me. So I guess we just consider, we try to stay, in harmony with our environments. And of course we use spiritual bypassing.
But it seems like, because in fact that happened in the group, like somebody else spoke up and said, like, that happens to me too. So getting a reflection from Sangha to say yes, but then how do you know you're not in a cult or something? Like, how do you refer,
Ah,
you know?
well, not being in a cult or not, I have two responses. One is, if you Google Robert Lifton's 8 points, he's the person who wrote definitively about what cults are and aren't.
Well, I was
And
speaking somewhat facetiously. I don't think this is a cult, but I think that if I am following a certain kind of practice and I think I'm coming to equanimity, but maybe I'm actually shutting down in some way or,
mhm,
you know, rationalizing or whatever. And then I check with somebody else who's also following that path, and they're going to be like, yeah, that happened to me too.
mhm,
And I just don't get the sense of how we know, I guess, other than just talking to other people in your life. But if the other people are saying, yeah, you've changed, you used to be like this, and now you're just kind of, oh, whatever. And then I think, well, is that whatever equanimity or is that something else?
mhm. There's a direct enemy of equanimity, which is uh, extreme responsiveness, reactivity, and the indirect enemy is kind of a hard-heartedness.
Mm.
And I think we can also tell whether we are going into hard-heartedness or not. And I don't know that anyone outside of ourselves can possibly know whether we're in true equanimity or not. I think that's one of those things that it's the experiment is it's an N of one, which is this one. And am I in fact being loving in this moment? And I think that's something that mindfulness can know. And it's a curious ride we're on, isn't it?
Hi. Can I just respond to
Hi, Joy.
Leanne? Hi. Leanne, if you remember, I asked a question like this a couple of weeks ago when Robert was away and Doug Pullen was there, and his response was, the self does not actually exist. And I thought, whoa, that's going to take me another 50 years to process. But, so,
yeah.
I mean, that was an interesting answer to all the agonizing over, you know, am I
Yay,
actually Doug Pullen? Yeah, he said that, if you remember back. But that's a good answer, or that could even be a spiritual bypassing type of answer to, what is actually happening in the self? Am I actually in a state of delusion? Hey, the self does not exist. Yay. Anyway, that's all.
I do remember that. That really struck me, and it was very helpful. I mean, I'm trying to even think of what your question was, but I remember his response, and it was something, as I recall, something like, who's doing the asking here, or something like that, like, where is this identity? It called me up short as well. At the
Well,
same time, I'm just not sure.
well, my question was that I suddenly felt that I was fabricating a self from a powerful cultural conditioning, and none of it was actually real. It was just conditions around me causing me to believe in a self and making it up. And then he said, "Oh, the self doesn't exist," which was it's hard. It's hard to. That's a hard one to really understand.
from this morning hearing, I had the sense that the self is just center, this little, the being, all the molecules, all the everything, all the emotions, energies, and that the personality or that we have wrapping paper around us. Our essence is just a little ball of something that's always there, but we keep wrapping ourselves in different wrapping paper, and which is changeable from by the minute, just the personality or the ideas, and some people respond differently. So anyway, it's a very cool meditation this morning.
I kind of want to put something in here. Leanne's question has brought up something I didn't even know I was thinking about in terms of when we're on this path, what about the people we know and are close to who are not on this path, and how does it affect them? And just really recently, I've had two experiences. One of them most recently with somebody I'm good, close friends with for a long time, who was trying to express some interpersonal issues. And I found that instead of my usual habit of wanting to really get into this and figure it out, there was a part of me that actually said, can't we just let this go? Which was great for me, but not for the other person, because they weren't in that space of, we're beyond this yet. And that, to me, Leanne's question of, so what am I really practicing here? Have I reached some point where I can let things go? But what does that do for the other people around me? And what does that look like to them? Does that look like to them that I'm now the one who's kind of turning my back on trying to work things out? Don't know if that's part of what you were thinking about, Leanne, but that's just an experience I had, and don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
I would like to put in a warning. A personal vignette which really exemplifies it. I was in graduate school in Toronto, and I did 2 months of very intensive practice, 16 hours a day of sitting and walking. As part of, I got a terms credit in this environmental studies program because one of my questions was, if we are part of the earth, how come we don't know it? And what can we do to get back into connection with the earth? And if we are part of each other, how come we don't know that, and what can we do about that? So I was authorized to do this very intensive Buddhist training, and I did. And the year before, I had good friends, and we sat around our kitchens, and we made spaghetti, and I learned about sticking spaghetti on the ceiling. If it sticks, it's ready. We had spaghetti and drank wine and got stoned and talked about the world's environmental problems. And it was a good time. Then I went off and did 2 months of intensive meditation. And I came back and I was utterly disinterested. I didn't want to sit around and listen to that music and have the same conversation and get stoned again. And I wanted to have real connection and real conversation. And I wasn't very skilled at it. And I found myself finding fault with my friends. It's like, well, what's wrong with them? Why don't they want to talk about this and that? And there was an interaction with an Australian fellow, one of these, and it was really the end of those relationships, actually. Because he said, we're not the problem. You're the problem. You've changed. You're not interested in what we're interested in. And if one practices deeply, one will change. It destabilizes relationships. And we then have to ask ourselves, what is my deepest value? What is my aspiration? Do I want to stay as I am so that I can maintain these old relationships? Or do I want to follow this inner course and do my very best? If the person said, no, I really want to talk about it, you could have said, okay, I'll work on it. My preference would be not to. But I'm willing to stay in relationship with you and do that. But this is not, you do 15 or 20 minutes a day for stress management purposes and waking up. That's great. It's not going to destabilize very much, but start doing an hour a day of practice and you're going to be different. And it will, in the relationships where it's possible to go deeper, all of a sudden you'll find yourself going way deeper, especially if the other person is in a similar journey. But this is not a small intervention. I had friends, Carl died just a year and a half ago, who were part of the founding of the California Institute of Transpersonal Studies. It was in Menlo Park, I think. And it was really a program of spiritual practices and study of psychotherapy and so on. And they had, I don't know, at year 3 or something, they had like an 80% or 90% divorce rate among their students. And they realized, wait, we're doing something here that may not be very skillful. And then they changed it so that for couples, both members of a couple had to apply to the program. And one was the active, the one seeking to become a psychotherapist in a transpersonal view. But the other one had to come to 2/3 of the meditation classes, and it was something they would do as a couple. And they were successful. Their divorce rate dropped remarkably because people didn't go off and, in a way, have an affair with a new way of being in the world. So that's another set of thoughts.
Oh, can you, Robert, clarify what was the actual warning? Is the warning that we might change?
Be careful. You're already changing all the time. And if you start meditating, you're going to discover yourself changing in profound ways. Chogyam Trungpa, this is an apocryphal thing, but I think it's true. Chogyam Trungpa, way back at the beginning of Buddhism in America, entered a room with several hundred young people, and he told them, if this is your first encounter with the Dharma, I suggest you leave. Because if you start, you're going to have to finish this journey, and it's quite a challenging journey. And of course, it was a way of attracting them. Right? Oh boy, that means I want to do it.
I think the power of culture is enormous with this. This is Penelope, and you're going counterculture with it. And I have a lot of experience with that. And we talked about this, I think, last week, maybe with Francine, about when you change the rules. I'm not saying it's so much that, but I think the cultural expectations are so enormous that you are who you are, right? But wait a minute, you're not. And so that's a very heavy winds to go against. So I think it takes enormous strength, but also you have to have the Sangha to do this.
Yep.
It's not fun necessarily. It's wonderful, but it's, shed friends.
The Buddha spoke of this as going against the stream. We're going upstream.
Hi, Robert. It's
David.
This is such an interesting conversation, and the meditation this morning took me to an interesting place where I just found myself sitting watching my conditioned self respond to the whatever inputs came from out there or in here. And I just had this sense, that there is a self, but it's this vaporous, non-substantive self, which is nothing but a collection of stories and memories. And this been building for me over time. Nothing but a collection of stories, memories, and conditioned responses that are Dave. And increasingly, I'm finding more and more space to sit and just watch this Dave story response to the world and not participate in it, not be that, but to sit and just watch that. And as I was listening to Leanne, there's so many things that I'm reactive to, whether it's that I am reactive to, whether it's politics or perceived threats. I even had this sense that this was all an autoimmune response trying to protect the notion of Dave. And it was kind of interesting to take that position. Oh, this is an autoimmune response. I'm just sitting watching Dave try to preserve its existence as it's understood it all of these years. And that's, it's really coalescing in my sense of what self is, that it's really just this story and collection of conditioned responses that's vaporous and non-substantive and the extent to which I identify with it, as in live in it, and the truth of it, that's when I go into delusion and start to suffer more. And there's the thing that I'm struggling with, which is what I think you just raised, or I think it was Penelope just raised, which is, okay, here I am sitting, observing this constant swirl of decades of conditioned response. And what do I do with that? How do I go engage with the world? What do I take as important? What do I respond to? What do I what do I connect to? That's where I'm kind of I'm living on the precipice of at the moment. Even now, watching all of the response to my having had the audacity to speak up here and say these things. At the moment, it's just sit and observe and see what happens.
Thanks, Dave. Well, I'm going to need to head out pretty soon. The days get full when one is leaving. So, anybody else have anything you'd like to share before we move on to the next thing? So shall we intone the great blessing. May all beings receive all blessings. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Just a word of note for those of you on Facebook and YouTube. With my absence, I think there's not going to be broadcasting to Facebook and YouTube. And in fact, we may be sunsetting it completely, except for Sundays. There will be a way for those of you that are part of the group, if you want to go back to time shift later in the day and watch Zoom. But this
Yes.
whole thing of broadcasting to Facebook and YouTube is really untenable. It's always a problem, and we've been looking at the numbers of people who look at it, and it's trivial, and in terms of numbers, and they watch for 2 minutes. And I know there's a few diehards among us here who actually use it. So we'll figure out a better way to do it, but we're going to simplify. It's also our broadcast software comes up for renewal in August, and that's another $600 or $800 that we wouldn't even need to spend. So Sundays, anyway, I'll explain more, but I'm saying this particularly for those on Facebook that in YouTube in the next couple of weeks, you're not going to find it. Okay, friends, happy trails.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Robert.
Great discussion this morning. Thank you all.